welcome to the Upgrading ArcGIS Enterprise session. Just a quick intro here. My name is Harrold, a technology lead from Support Services team. Main focus on supporting most challenging infrastructure-related cases when it comes down to the ArcGIS Enterprise, installations and configuration aspects. And with me, I have my dear colleague and friend, Tarun, who will...
Thank you, Harrold. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Tarun Jaiswal. I'm a product engineer on ArcGIS Enterprise team. Excited to have all of you here. So thank you for joining.
Now, before we get started with today's content, we have an ask for you. So for this session and all the other conference this week, we're hoping that you will share your thoughts and feedback through the survey. We'll review these surveys results to ensure that these sessions are covering the content that you need, and they are delivered in a way that resonates with you and your work. If you have a few minutes over a couple of days, please submit the feedback through the Esri Events app. Now, for today's session, we will start with an introduction. We will go through some common terms related to ArcGIS Enterprise and upgrading. We'll talk about what upgrading actually means in the context of ArcGIS Enterprise. And we'll walk through why you should be upgrading regularly. And from there, we will walk through some consideration prior to upgrading, and then dig into the recommendation orders for upgrades. ArcGIS Enterprise on Windows and Linux is made of serious software components, and each of these should be upgraded in a specific order. So in this session, we will just be covering Windows and Linux deployment options. We will not be covering upgrades for ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes, as they are a bit different. And from there, we will dive into each component and talk through some deployments and automation tools available to you, and discuss the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder that maybe some of you guys are using. And then we'll actually get to see the upgrade process with a couple of video demos, and Tarun will be covering that. After the upgrade, we'll go through some validation steps for post-upgrade and talk some tips and troubleshooting if something goes wrong. And we will cover some specific workflows for you that may need to minimize downtime or risk associated with upgrades. And then we'll close it out with some additional resources and questions. So to get started, we'll walk through some common terms associated with ArcGIS Enterprise and upgrading. So first is the ArcGIS Enterprise-based deployment. Enterprise in Windows and Linux will be made of software components like we discussed. And to have working foundation of ArcGIS Enterprise, you'll need 4 core components: the portal for ArcGIS, ArcGIS Server, ArcGIS Data Store, and the ArcGIS Web Adapters. Next, we have the concept of in-place upgrades. With an in-place upgrades, you will actually installing a new software of ArcGIS Enterprise on top of the existing version in order to upgrade. This in contrast to the uninstall, install, upgrade pattern, in which you will manually uninstall the old version of the software before installing the new version. When taking this approach, make sure not to delete the existing leftover installation directories, as they can cause issues to the new version. And then finally, we have the authorization files. For each new version of the ArcGIS Enterprise, you do need to provide license for that version in order to authorize it. And you will need to have these authorized files at the ready before you upgrade. So now that upgrades are actually in the context of ArcGIS Enterprise, well, one helpful way to understand this is in the contrast with the word we hear commonly used, which actually means something different in the context of ArcGIS Enterprise, and that is updates. So updates are going to provide relatively small fixes for the existing version of the software, These fixes are delivered as patches, and they do not provide new functionality. Because these patches are providing focus fixes, they are usually only installed against one or a couple components at a time. And for this reason, updates are typically fairly quick. Upgrades, by contrast, are really foundationally changing the software in the way that means that we need to go from one version to another. Upgrades will introduce fixes, but they also introduce totally new functions and enhancements as well. Because we are foundationally changing the software, upgrades have to be installed against the entire deployment. And for that reason, it will take some time. Another word we hear commonly confused with upgrade is migration. And again, in the context of ArcGIS Enterprise, they do mean two different things. With migration, you are actually moving to a new infrastructure or a new machine while staying at the same version of the software. In the case of migration, you will need to move all your content to this new infrastructure, and this might take a lot of work. We often recommend use of the automation tools to support this process. With upgrades, you will be staying on the same machine, but you are just moving to the next software version. Because you aren't moving infrastructure, your content will be on the same place. Now, we've talked through what upgrades are, but we know they may take some time, so why should you feel motivated to upgrade regularly? Well, first, you want to gain access to the latest security enhancements and bug fixes. You are using the ArcGIS Enterprise to do important work of your organization, and we want to ensure that you are on the most secure and bug-free version of the software. Another good reason to upgrade is to get the most value out of your own investment in ArcGIS Enterprise by being able to take advantage of new features, functionality, apps, and product that comes with releases. You also want to upgrade to stay within the supported life cycle. Each version of ArcGIS Enterprise will have a dedicated product life cycle. So determining how long you will receive patching and technical support for that version. And again, since you are using the enterprise to do really important work, you want to ensure that you can always get the technical support and security patches when you need them. And finally, by upgrading regularly, you are also paying yourself forward. With each release, we enhance installers and patching mechanism in Enterprise to make upgrading and updating them much easier. Now, hopefully you are motivated to upgrade. So let's talk to some of the things you should be thinking about before you dive into the upgrade process itself. So have I read through the product documentation? Product documentation is helpful across all aspects of Enterprise, but it's especially important with upgrading. It will walk through some of the step-by-steps upgrading. So to get ready, start by reading through the upgrade documentation and what's new update for the version of the Enterprise you will be upgrading to as well. Have I upgraded this deployment previously? Another good thing to think about here is if you have previously upgraded your deployment. Of course, this might be your first time, but if you have upgraded this deployment previously, it's a good reflect on what process and plans ahead for anything that may have tripped you previously. Do I know where all my ArcGIS Enterprise components are installed? Another important one here, your components may be installed on a single machine. They may be spread across multiple machines. Before upgrading, take a look at your system architect to make sure that you know that all your machines will need to do on those upgrades. we would recommend that you run the configuration tool. It's another tool. It's a Python script that actually provides an output of your enterprise and configuration information about your enterprise deployment. It's a neat and handy tool, so use it. And have I allocated the necessary maintenance window for this upgrade and inform my, skip ahead here. Do I have all the necessary permissions configured for these deployments? You'll need to make sure you have the necessary permission configured on each of these machines in order to upgrade each components. And have I allocated the necessary maintenance windows for this upgrade and inform my users? Next, you want to make sure that you are informing your users about the potential disruptions related for upgrading. Upgrading will take time, and you want your users to be prepared for all the necessary maintenance window. You also want to ensure that you are aware of the changes for the new features that will be presented after the upgrade is complete. Are direct upgrades from my current version to the version I'm upgrading to supported? So next, you'll need to consider if you can go straight to the version you want to upgrade to. Not every single version of Enterprise supports upgrades directly to the latest release. So if you are using fairly older version of the software, you may want to do what we call an interim upgrade. And when you upgrade to the version in between that you are at and the one that you want to go to. So check this will be necessary in the product documentation. And have I checked the version compatibility matrix for any apps that I'm currently using? So you also want to check if the version of the apps you are using are compatible with the version of the enterprise you're upgrading to. But in some cases, certain versions of the apps you're using may not be compatible with the version of enterprise. So you can also check the product documentation for that. Another important one here, have I take a backup? Again, especially when you're calling tech support, you want to ensure that you have a backup before starting the upgrade process. Backup are good practice in general, but especially important before you take the upgrade. Do I have the new version downloads and licenses? Now, before upgrading, you want to make sure that you are actually have the software downloads and licenses for the new version. You'll find this in your My Esri account. And then are there special consideration for version I'm upgrading to? So you want to make sure that there isn't any unique consideration for the version you are upgrading to. So in some cases, there may be breaking changes between the version you are and the version you're going to. So again, product documentation is the right resource for this information. Do I need to consider OS, database, third-party upgrades as part of this upgrade? So finally, you do want to consider if upgrading operating system, databases, or other third-party elements will be part of this upgrade, because we do see sometimes users pairing their enterprise upgrade with these elements. All right, now that we're ready for upgrade, we will quickly go over the components of ArcGIS Enterprise on Windows and Linux that we'll be upgrading to. And as a reminder here, your base enterprise deployment will include Portal for ArcGIS, ArcGIS Server, ArcGIS Data Store, and 2 web adapters. Your system may have additional components, but this will be the type of deployment we'll be covering for today. So these components will need to be upgraded in a particular order. You'll start with Portal for ArcGIS component, and then you'll move into the ArcGIS web adapter configured with Portal for ArcGIS, and then you'll upgrade web styles, and then you'll move into your ArcGIS server. If you have multi-node ArcGIS server side, you will upgrade each server at one time or sequentially. And then you'll upgrade your ArcGIS web adapter configured with ArcGIS server. And then you'll move into the ArcGIS data store. And then if you've gone beyond your base deployment and are using additional things like server roles, you will need to upgrade those as well. Now, going to pass this section of the upgrade process to Tarun.
All right.
Tarun,
can you
take it away?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Harrold. Thank you, everyone, for listening so far. A lot of information. Now, hopefully, we have convinced you to upgrade to the latest version of ArcGIS Enterprise. The next few slides going to talk through what happens during upgrade. We're going to go through the nuances of upgrading each and every component of ArcGIS Enterprise, and then we're going to also see demos and validation. So this slide will give you like a precursor of like what happens during an upgrade of each component. And this is pretty consistent no matter which component you are upgrading. There is a software upgrade process. This is a process when you're uninstalling the previous version or the old version of the software and installing the newer version of software you're trying to go to. Then there is a site upgrade part. This is where you upgrade your portal site, server site, configure your data store, configure your web adapter. This is that process. And in some cases, we have to work with post-upgrade, which is primarily portal. We have to go through some of the post-upgrade processes after, and then validations and whatnot. So keep this in mind because you're going to see the theme throughout the next few slides. All right, if you remember what Harrold told us, our first component to upgrade is Portal for ArcGIS. So let's see what happens there. Very important, don't want you to be stuck as a GIS admin. You downloaded the software, you got everything, you're excited to get going, and then you do not have the license file. You forgot that process. And then you're like, oh, I have to go through this, and then, sometime it may take a while, whatnot. Don't want you to be stuck. So be prepared with your software setups and licensing file. There is a variety of ways you can upgrade your Portal for ArcGIS. There's a default way, which is like this way of upgrading your Portal for ArcGIS. Some of you may prefer going through the portal admin endpoint and upgrading Portal for ArcGIS. Some of you may be using command line to do that silently. Either or, whichever method you use, all of them are equally, they're all the same. They upgrade your Portal for ArcGIS. They will need the license file, so make sure you have that. Something to keep in mind, and many of you have already seen this, but you want to still cover, before 11.0, the experience to upgrade your portal looked like something like this. Once you finish setting up, doing the upgrade of your software, you get presented with a website where you're like, please give me the license file. You provide that license file, you click on continue portal upgrade, and then you see a little tiny, small spinning circle. And you wait until it is done. And then it will message you like, hey, upgrade is completed. And then you finish your post-upgrade. Obviously, this experience wasn't the most helpful, so we improved it. And starting from 11.0 and beyond, if you're upgraded, if you've already upgraded, you probably have seen this. If you've not, you're going to see this. Once you finish installing your software setup, you're done. Then you're presented with a website where you provide your license files. Again, that file you need to be ready with, the JSON license file for your Portal for ArcGIS. And then you click Continue Portal Upgrade. You see these variety of stages, which is upgrading your Portal for ArcGIS. In this case, I'm going from 11.4 to 11.5, and I see different stages of Portal for ArcGIS. So sometime as an admin, you may be like, oh, here we are. We're in this process right now, and the next few things are left and whatnot. If you go through the command line, you will see the same steps, like the variety of stages of portal for ArcGIS upgrade, or if you choose to go through the portal admin route to upgrade your ArcGIS, portal for ArcGIS, then also you'll see the different stages. So just another way for an admin to know where the portal for upgrade is at a current time. If you are working with highly available portal, this pattern hasn't changed in a long time. You have to install the software setup on both the machines, like doing an in-place upgrade. You have to run the software setup on primary or standby. You can start wherever, but both machines need to have the new version. And then you can continue portal upgrade from either machine, whether it's primary or standby, and then also finish the post-upgrade operations. Once your portal is upgraded, we can go and upgrade our ArcGIS server. In this case, it's our hosting server. This hasn't changed in a very long time. You finish installing your software setup, like once the ArcGIS server installation is done, you click finish, you provide the license file to authorize it, and then you get presented with this web page, and then you continue server upgrade. And something to keep in mind, when you are upgrading your base deployment, your hosting server has to be the same version. There is no exception to that. If you have some other multiple federated server, they can stay at the current version, but ideally you should be upgrading them too. But if you have a tight window, you want to make sure your base deployment is all done, and then you can upgrade those other federated servers at a later time. Since portal has started showing the different stages of upgrade process, we implemented for ArcGIS server since 11.3. If you use the admin endpoint to upgrade your ArcGIS server, you will see the different stages. Again, a helpful tool for admin to know where things are. And some of you use command line to upgrade your ArcGIS server, so that got introduced at 11.4 and beyond. You will see the different stages of ArcGIS server upgrade similar to portal for ArcGIS. If in any case, and there are circumstances when your server site, ArcGIS server site, is made up of many machines, multiple nodes or multiple machines. The way to upgrade that particular site is you got to run the software on each and every machine. So if you're on 11.5 trying to go to 12.0 and you have 3 server nodes, you're going to run the 12 setup on each of these 3 machines. Once that software setup is done, you go to the first machine and then continue upgrading your server. Then you go to the next machine, then you go to the final machine and finish that process. Once your ArcGIS server is upgraded, the last component, another component to upgrade is ArcGIS Data Store before we do the web raptors. You're going to see some of this new interface when you're going to upgrade to 12.0. And the process is still the same. You run your software setup wherever the ArcGIS Data Store machine is. Once that setup is done, then you get presented with this configure data store web page. You provide the information of your ArcGIS server, click through that web page and finish the upgrade of your data store. You can also choose to do this by command line also, whichever method is preferred. If you're going to upgrade to 12.0, you're going to see some of these improvements in terms of UI, like how it looks like, the new additions of these web pages. If you're using highly available data store, primary and standby, similar pattern what we learned in portal, you're going to run the software setup, like the data store, on both the machines, primary and standby. Once those software setup is done running, then you can configure from either of the machine, primary or standby, or you can use the command line from any of the machine to finish that step. Some of you may be using spatial-temporal big data store. It could be in a pattern of 3 machines, 5 machines, depending upon how you have it set up. Same process. It sounds like, okay, I'm repeating the same thing, but it's important. Like, you don't want to run the software setup on 2 machines out of 3 and then forget the third one. Then you're going to run into some issue. So just keep that in mind. However your setup is, you run those software setup on each and every machine. We're doing an in-place upgrade. Once the software is upgraded, we're going to use our command line or the website configuration wizard to go through the upgrade process. Few things to keep in mind, and you probably, some of you already have talked to us, visit us at Island. We're going to be open till 3:30, so if there are more questions we could not finish, please come and stop by at the showcase, and we'll take we'll provide all the help we can. 11.5 is the last release with the tile cache data store. Tile cache data store is where you save your scene services, the 3D services. So if you are working with tile cache data store, the version you should try to go to from wherever you're upgrading is 11.5, because that's the place where there's object store also, and you've got to migrate those scene services to object store. This link will take you to the help documentation, and you can read through that. There's a blog about it also which talks about this. So please keep that in mind. If this is none of your concern, then you can move on to the version you're trying to go to. Similarly, there are a few changes and nuances to the upgrading of graph data store. If you are working with a knowledge server using the graph data store, some of this may be of your something to read through and learn. So please keep that in mind. This is where the planning comes in. The site here, the checklist Harrold went through, like, what are my components, what I'm trying to do, what I need to achieve. This is where the planning comes in. Now that I've upgraded my portal for ArcGIS, ArcGIS server, ArcGIS data store, I'm going to do my web adapters. You can also do web adapters after your portal and after your server upgrade, but just for the presentation's sake, we're showing it at the last of the sequence. Yeah. The pattern to upgrade your web adapter is slightly different. You always have to uninstall the current version. That's how it has been designed for some technical reason, and especially you can have multiple web adapters on your machine for different purposes. So the idea is we're always going to uninstall the current version of web adapter, and then we're going to install the new version. Very important, and something very, very, very important to take a note. While you're uninstalling your web adapters, make sure you take a note of the names. So in this case, the name of my web adapter is portal and server. I really want to make sure I'm making a note of that, because when I'm going to install them again, I'm going to provide the same name. Otherwise, my services will be broken. And then you have to go through this process again. And once you're done installing the web adapter, you see a configuration page where you provide the information for portal or server website, and then provide the credentials, and then register. You can do this by command line also as needed. Something I know you guys are always looking for automation to do all this work at times. So we're going to talk about that, some of the nuances there. We do provide a variety of ways to automate your deployment patterns, like you could use CloudFormation template, you can use Cloud Builder on Amazon Web Services, or you can use Cloud Builder on Azure. We have chef cookbooks. We have PowerShell DSC. There's a ArcGIS Enterprise builder. Quickly deploy your ArcGIS Enterprise on a dev or test machine. Like, all things happen on one machine. So there are a variety of options. Again, if you have questions around this, come see at a showcase, and we can connect you with the colleagues. This is like the crux of a lot of things to important. I know you started manually, but now you want to use automation. There is no magic wand to that, because there are so many considerations to take care of. So the method you have started is always going to be your method to continue to upgrade. There are workarounds around it, but it needs work to get to one of these ways to deploy your enterprise. So something to keep in mind as you plan some of this automation in your workflows, in your organization. Let's walk you some of the scenarios, so you have some food for thought. each component is installed and configured separately, like many of us done. Then we're going to continue to upgrade each component separately. This gives you the most flexibility, most control, because you control everything. You know where things are. You just don't click a button and then wait for things to happen. This is where you're gonna log into each machine. You're gonna download everything. You're gonna bring everything there. So this is like the place where you have the most control. The other pattern is like, hey, I did everything installed manually, but I want to now upgrade by chef cookbooks. Like this can be done, but it's a lot of trial and error, because the cookbooks will need like, hey, I need to understand what is the configuration JSON for this environment, and you have to supply that information. If you have originally started with chef cookbooks, that configuration file is already there, and then you supply it and then you move on. But when you have done things manually, you got to figure this out information, and that's where it's trial and error. You can always try it, but again, it takes time. And then if things are if you are supporting critical operations, then it might not be the way to go. And same thing for Cloud Builder on Amazon and Cloud Builder for Microsoft Azure. As long as you have used those methods and not changed the architecture, like added more machines, added new server roles, done something more than what it needs to be, then it's hard to use those methods again, because now you have like made those things manual. Like you started with Cloud Builder, but you manually added more things to it, and then it doesn't. The Cloud Builder will be like, I don't know, I don't understand this properly, and then you cannot use that method. So something to keep in mind: the way you start is the way you're going to continue to upgrade. Obviously, there's a lot of documentation, and there are nuances around each cloud provider, and there are always some changes around each version based on cloud provider offering. So something to keep in mind, and that's where product documentation comes in handy. ArcGIS Enterprise Builder. This is like a way to deploy quickly on your test and dev machines. All you get is a setup which comprises of all the software component. You go through few clicks, and then it goes and deploy everything on single machine. You can continue to upgrade using Enterprise Builder as long as you have not changed the architecture, underlying architecture, which is like unfederated, like this server. I've added more server. I've changed my web context URL, the public URL, like where my users go and connect with it. I've changed my content directory. I started with C drive. Now I am in D drive after some testing. Or I've added more machines to this setup. Enterprise Builder is about one machine. So these are some architectural changes which you can do, and then like, oh, I cannot use Enterprise Builder again to upgrade. Of course not. You got to be just doing the same thing. So keep that in mind. As long as you don't mess up with the architecture too much, you can continue to use the same method. Well, enough talking. Let's go watch out like a demo of how this all play in action. Obviously, upgrade takes a little bit longer. We have like speed it up to give you some information, and so we're going to watch this demo, and I'll walk you through. In this case, I've used the banner to tell my users, hey, it's going to be upgrading on certain date. I'm going to upgrading from 11.5 to 12.0. This is a setup where each of my components are individually installed. My first thing is Portal for ArcGIS. So I've downloaded my software. I'm going to go through the setup, and then this is similar for each software setup, like the initial clicks, and then I'm going to provide my installer information, the credentials, and then proceed through my installer. Once this gets finished, and this is where like the software upgrade is happening. My 11.5 is being undeployed, and 12.0 is being deployed. Once I'm done, click finish. I'm presented with a web page where I'm going to provide my license file. So I will do that. Once I provide my license file, continue portal upgrade. And then I see the different stages of my upgrade. Then the UI will tell me where am I. Once I'm done, I'm going to click OK and finish this process. Once this finishes, I'm going to log into my portal for ArcGIS site. I'm going to finish my post-upgrade operations, which takes few minutes. And then I'm done upgrading my portal for ArcGIS component. The next component I'm going to upgrade is my portal for ArcGIS web adapter. I'm going to come and uninstall it. I made a note for the name of the portal web adapter, which is portal. Once I'm done uninstalling, I'm going to install the 12.0 version of the web adapter. Walk through the installer, go through the agreement and whatnot, and then once this is finished, I'm going to be presented with a configuration web page where this is the space where I'm going to put the correct name portal. And then once this is done, I'm going to be presented with the configuration page where I can provide the information and register this web adapter with portal. In this case, I'm registering portal for ArcGIS, so I choose that radio button, provide the information, and configure. Once this is done, I'm going to upgrade my ArcGIS server. Similar pattern, like, I've installed my ArcGIS server, I'm going to click finish, and then I'm going to authorize it. And once that is done, I'm going to be presented with a web page saying continue server upgrade. And finish this process. Next will be web adapter for ArcGIS server. So I'm going to come and uninstall that, and then installing the 12.0 version for the web adapter for ArcGIS server. Once it is done, I'm going to use the GIS server radio button, provide the information, configure, and finish that process. And last but not the least, I'm going to go upgrade my ArcGIS data store, run the software setup. We're almost there. Finish this process, going through the installer, providing the information it needs. And once we finish once the installer it's done running, we're going to click finish, and we're going to provide it with a configuration wizard to finish the upgrade process. Here I will provide the information from my ArcGIS server to register my data store, configure it. In this deployment, I have relational graph and object store. I'm going to upgrade all of those and then finish the process. All right. Now that I've upgraded my ArcGIS Enterprise, I'm excited to go back and give this environment back to my users, whoever who wants to use this new software. But very important as an admin, I just want to run some validations before I release this. This checklist varies from organization to organization, depends on what workflows you use, what apps you're using, what kind of things you have done with your organization. But here are some of the basics ones. We're gonna run through few of them. So I got a little demo to show that. First and foremost, once I am done upgrading every component, I'm going to go to my org settings and then look for the server tab. And then I just want to make sure all my federated servers are all working. So it should say all system operational. That gives me enough confidence. I'm going to do one more test. I'm going to go to my content and I'm going to publish a zipped shapefile as a hosted feature service. That covers many components altogether, and that's just like something I really want to do to make sure I can do that. Once this publishing process is finished, I want to make sure I can open it in Map Viewer, perhaps. That gives me a little bit more confident that like, hey, I can publish, I can view it in Map Viewer. And one more check I can do also is log into portal admin endpoint, go to system, index, run the index status, and make sure every number are matching. So those are some of the validations you can run. And this list could be, depends on each and every organization. But if you have bare minimum to do, please do these. We really don't want things to go wrong. We really don't want to, but they do go wrong. We all know that. Some of the things to keep in mind, and then logs are lifeline for anyone who's going to troubleshoot that. So, and it's going to be lifeline for you also if you run into some issue and you can read the logs and help troubleshoot that yourself. So these are the locations where the logs are logged by default. Sometimes you may have changed these locations, which will be available in your, when you go to your log into your site, you can always find that where are my logs. So these are the places where you're going to look for the logs for portal, server, or data store if something goes wrong, and then help you troubleshoot that. There are times when you tried and it didn't work. Then you were like, let me try this with debug level logs. Debug level logs provide you more information. It's more detailed information. And sometimes that's helpful for troubleshooting. When a portal for ArcGIS software upgrade fails, site upgrade failed, or ArcGIS server upgrade failed, you can always go through the admin endpoint and check the debug level logs to upgrade. And that will provide a little bit more information for you to troubleshoot that information. Because the next step is you're going to call tech support and they're going to ask for that debug level logs and Harrold can vouch for that. So something to keep in mind. But again, the bottom line is logs will be the place where you're going to look for some information and provide you the helpful tips to like troubleshoot that. Many a times you're working on critical operations and upgrading ArcGIS Enterprise is going to take certain amount of time, and you really want to minimize that downtime during the upgrade process. There's a way to do it. There's a process. There's a lot of resources to help you out, and we're going to walk through that very quickly. And you'll see some of the resources. We can do this only if you are at 10.8 or above. If you're not at 10.8 yet, you should be. All of you should be at least 10.8.1, if nothing. You got to be at least 10.8 because that's where the read-only mode was introduced, and that's very critical to do this process. We're going to use WebGIS tool to work through that process, and then walk you through some of the steps of upgrading a new deployment and whatnot. And there are nuances to it, like how this is done. Very, very important to keep in mind, this is very resource intensive work. It's not like I got one machine, I got like 20 machines in my original deployment. You will need 20 machines in your mirror environment when you're going to do this. So it's something to keep in mind, like what it takes to make this happen. A very simple example here, like I got a machine where I have my base deployment and it's registered to WebGIS Esri.com. This is my working production environment. What I need to do is I need to duplicate this because I am trying to do this minimized downtime or minimal time to upgrade this. What I want to do is I'm going to set up another environment, m2.esri.com, similar setup the way I have my original, like my production. I've installed my software. However, I'm playing a trick when I'm registering my when I'm trying to register my web adapter I'm calling that machine also as m1.esri.com. And this is what is an important step. Like I'm playing with this etc host file to trick it like, hey, please also consider me as m1.esri.com. And this is what like the resources will walk you through the process, like how you can do this. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to make my production read-only. What read-only does is customers, users, whoever is using your organization, they can still access the content, but they cannot create new one. They cannot create new users. They cannot edit anything. And we need this because we do not want to be in a situation when we take a backup and then you have created more content and you're going to lose your data. So we just want to make sure we can do read-only mode. That way they're happy doing their work while you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to just work on my upgrade process while you can still work. Everybody's happy. But I need all these resources to make it happen. Then I take a WebGIS DR backup of my production environment. I'm going to restore in my duplicated environment. My customers and users are still working with the read-only mode. I'm going to upgrade my new, like the duplicated environment now to the version I'm trying to go to. Of course, I'm going to go to 12.0 in this case. Once I'm done, I'm going to decommission this or do whatever you want to do with the older environment. Up to you, how you want to use it after that. And my last step is I'm going to just quickly uninstall my web adapter and then install my new web adapter and then register with my new environment, which is upgraded. There's a lot of steps involved, a lot of testing is needed to make sure it works the way based on your organization and network settings and whatnot. So there's a couple of resources for you to go through that. There's a blog, there is help documentation. And by the way, this is all recorded and whatnot, so it will be all available also later on when you access the resources. With this, I'm going to send it back to Harrold to take us to the end.
Yeah, thanks, Tarun. Now let's close the session with some key takeaway and more resource to look through when you get back in the office. So first, please read through the product documentation and be thoughtful about considerations specific to the version you are going to. Again, reading the upgrade doc is important, but so is what's the new doc for the version you're upgrading to. This doc is not cumulative, so make sure you read all the version between that you're at and that you're going to. Next, take backups regularly, but especially for upgrading in the case that you need to roll back. Upgrade regularly, get the most out of your investment in enterprise, and stay with the product lifecycle. And then finally, consider the workflow that Tarun just shared. If you're concerned about the risk of downtime associated with the upgrade, make sure to keep in mind those infrastructure required mentioned by Tarun. And now we couldn't cover everything here, so here's some good resources to review them once you're back in the office. First, we have the product documentation. Check out the main upgrading product doc. You can also check out the frequently asked questions upgrading, specifically going from 11x to the version of Enterprise. And then we have some of the helpful blogs, first covering the 11x from the 10x version. And then from there, we have some licensing consideration, upgrading from 11.4 and up. So we ask that you check that out as well. And then dive into the ArcGIS Enterprise 11.5 before you dive into 12.0. So make sure you are ready. So check that blog out if you have not already checked that out yet. And then another resource here is the ArcGIS Enterprise Architecture Center. It's a resource for IT administrators who design, build, and sustain the ArcGIS system. It consists of system patterns, architecture, best practices, a library full of content, and it's actually consistently updating. So we encourage that you check that out as well. And again, we encourage you to check some more additional Esri developer community social media here, like YouTube, GitHub, and many more. Another friendly reminder here, just please submit the feedback through the Esri Events apps when you can. And with that, that wraps up our presentation. We'll open up with questions that you may have.
Yeah.
Or you can come up here.
Yeah.
With
Yes, please.
individual
Yes.
questions.
Go ahead.
My understanding of read-only mode, users can still edit data. So what happens if a user is editing a hosted feature layer, like when you're in the middle of upgrading the data?
I have to double check, but the idea with the read-only mode is you should not be creating new content. The idea with read-only mode is you can access what you have at this time, so there is no disruption with the business, but to not create a new thing. Because if you're going to keep creating new thing, how I'm going to match up with my backup I just took to restore? Something we can discuss that if I'm missing something. But the idea with the read-only mode is you should not be creating anything new. It's something. No new groups, no new users, nothing new is created, no new apps. That's the idea.
No, I'm talking about like a hydrant, for example, in a web application. Like, does read-only mode stop people from editing?
I believe so, and if I'm missing something, we can connect and understand. That's the idea. Like there is no new creation in the organization. Whatever you have is you can continue to access that, but do not create anything new. So there is no delta between the backup you have taken and then when you're going to restore it.
When I read the documentation, it's got the impression that it did not apply to like editing features. It's just creating new things.
We can look into that to just sort it out a little bit more. You're welcome. Yes, please, yes. Gentleman at the back, and then you can come. Yeah.
Organization install enterprise manually, like portal separate, would you recommend installing enterprise builder on top of that, or do I stick with the manual process? Looks like there's two choices. What's your recommendation?
Okay.
So yeah, the question is they've installed the deployment on separate machines, manual process, and correct. Okay.
And now I want to do enterprise, the builder, which does it all.
So the idea is both patterns are valid.
Yeah.
Should I do manual install on my machine, or should I use Enterprise Builder? When you use Enterprise Builder, everything is going to be on one machine. And that's for dev and testing kind of environments. In the real world scenario, sometimes what you want to do is you don't want a single point of failure. You want to make sure your portal is on one machine, your service is on one machine. That way you just don't have one point of failure. Everything is valid, like any pattern you want to do that. You can manually install everything on one machine also if that's the constraint you're working with. But just keep that in mind. If you use Enterprise Builder to deploy, then that's the method you're going to continue to upgrade. If you manually installed it and now I'm like, oh, can I use Enterprise Builder to upgrade this deployment? No, you're going to continue to manually upgrade. Yeah. Please. Okay, so the question is, I'm on one machine currently, but I want to expand my environment to multiple machines now. We got resources. We call this, I'm going to migrate from single machine deployment to multi-machine deployment. I'm going to migrate from multi-machine to single machine, or multiple machine to multiple machines. We got help documentation to talk through that. Yes, what we need to do that here first is we want to stay at the same version and then make sure what I'm trying to achieve from single machine to multiple machines. I don't want to do this during the upgrade process. I'm going to do this, let's say I'm at 11.5 single machine. I want to make sure I can migrate the setup 11.5 single machine to 11.5 multiple machine. And that's where, you create this duplicate environment, you set everything separately, you take a backup, you restore, and the documentation talk about all of these processes. Once you're done with that, then you go and upgrade. Or you can do this, you can upgrade that deployment and then, separate it out. So either way, you still have to do that process, but you got to stay on the same version when you're doing this separation of machines. Yes, please, and then I'll come to you. Yeah. We can look into that. The idea is, yes, you can upgrade, and then we got to look into that a little bit. There could be, what can I say? With each version, we're trying to make it more sophisticated. We're trying to make it easy, and then you may be reading some version documentation which says something, and there is a little nuance. So let's just go read the latest version and then make sure. All right, question.
In a highly manageable portal, when you perform the licensing step and then the post-upgrade step, do those need to be performed using the fully qualified domain name of one of those, or can I use the name that's registered to DNS?
In a highly available environment, you're basically just using one DNS, right? One naming convention. So, and you can upgrade portal, right, at either the primary or standby. That can kick at the same time even. So you can technically use...
Upgrade steps, right, where you're doing the licensing step, and then doing the post-upgrade step after it restarts after licensing. So, right, if I can just name my load down and said either node, right? Is it okay if those operations, let's say that the licensing takes place on one node, but then the post-upgrade takes place on another node? Is that okay?
We got to check with some of our highly upgrade colleagues who work in that space. So let me give you my information and we can connect and then just make sure. There could be little nuances and we don't want to give a wrong answer. Yeah. Yes. We'll take a couple of more questions before, Go ahead, please.
Oh, Abram.
A lot of customers these days have object store and spatial big data store. Those aren't part of the GIS yet, but it's part of it. Are you guys ever any resources to talk about like order of operations for adding those on to the other stack? Are you doing that great?
Again, Abraham, is it just the, repeat what you said in the middle there? Was it config store and directories? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think I've been different resources that help people understand the order of operations.
Yeah.
Object store backup and the spatial control big data store backup into the second stack.
Yeah, I think we can talk on the side on that one. That one, I don't think we have a lot of documentation that covers that aspects, but it'll be good to discuss that offline and definitely talk to some of our product teams at the showcase.
Yes, please.
Once that my data all that upgrade we done issues that integrated with the ArcGIS Community. That's negotiable.
Yeah, so the question is, can I duplicate my environment in using the Cloud Builder in Azure? Yes, you can. But then we also want to make sure the networking and subnet as needed is there. So the blog talks about the machines which are physical or VM and then work through. As long as you have access to the etc host file, that's where the magic needs to happen to say like, oh, direct my traffic to this particular location, this particular setup. If you have like access to those things in Azure environment, you can definitely do that. So that's where cloud nuance is going to come and play. All right. Well, our session ends here. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sticking with us. We'll take some more questions. We'll be at Showcase till 3:30. So please stop by. And we got different topics to cover also, which overlaps with upgrades. So we got colleagues to help you out. Thank you again for joining. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.